Christ. I thank Father Clarence for this invitation to share my thoughts and my feelings with you about preaching in the time of pandemic. On this vigil of our Holy Father, Saint Dominic, we have come together to reflect together, to study together and pray together about our common ministry, which is preaching. I am sure Father Ohoy will be able to enlighten us even more on this very important topic. Preaching is the soul of our spirituality as members of this spiritual family. That we would not be able to identify ourselves without that word, preaching. When we speak of preaching during the time of pandemic, I'd like to approach it from two angles. Number one is, there is something absolute about preaching. With or without pandemic, we must always have it. But there are some aspects about preaching that this pandemic has taught us. So first, the absolutes. What is absolutely necessary is that preaching should come from mysticism. It is when the preacher is a mystic that he is able to touch hearts, he is able to move souls, and the grace of God works in the hearts of our brothers and sisters. What the world needs now are not extra preachers who are brilliant, who are the best among the best. What the world needs now are preachers who come from mysticism, preachers who come from the chest of the Lord, from the heart of the Lord, and having heard the beating of the Lord's heart, be able to move forward in mission to preach the gospel. There are 4 gospels, and among the 4 gospels, we identify one gospel as the gospel written by a mystic, and that mystic is Saint John the Beloved, Saint John the Evangelist, Saint John the Beloved of Jesus. At the Last Supper, Saint John leaned his head on the chest of the Lord. And leaning his head on the chest of the Lord, listened to the beating of his heart. Can you imagine in your heart the chest beating with love and the beloved disciple listening to it intently? But even if the heart of the disciple was leaning on the chest of the Lord, the eyes of the beloved disciple were not looking at the chest of the Lord. They could not be looking at the face of the Lord. I can imagine those eyes looking at the door leading outside, meaning to say, his ears were on the chest of the Lord, on the love of the Lord, but his eyes were outside looking for mission. The work of preaching is that. Our duty is to lean on the chest of the Lord, to listen to the beating of his heart, to know how the Lord loves, to know how the Lord thinks, and to speak like the Lord. But our eyes are outside. Our eyes are outside because when the Lord shows us the beating of his heart, it is always for a mission. That is why the scriptures tell us how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of those who bring glad tidings. It is not the face that is beautiful. It is the feet. It is the feet going out on mission. It is the feet leaving familiar places, leaving familiar friends, leaving familiarity, and going into insecurity and preaching the gospel. The feet of the preacher are beautiful. The feet of the missionary preacher are beautiful because those feet are willing to live familiar grounds in order to preach to all the corners of the world what he has heard from the beating of the Lord's heart. Brothers and sisters, that is our first vocation as preachers, to be mystics. And it is mystics who preach, who will be able to change the world. Continue the meditation on the Last Supper with the head of the beloved disciple on the chest of the Lord. And then the Lord said, "One of you will betray me." And Peter asked the beloved disciple, "Please ask him, who is it?" I just wonder, why ask John? He was already commissioned to hold the keys of the kingdom of heaven. He was already by then the prince of the apostles. But why ask John? Who is it, Lord? What is it teaching us? There is the authority of Peter, and there is the love of Saint John the Beloved. What does it mean? That authority can only talk to the heart of the Lord through love. That power held in our hands, given by the Lord, would not be enough for us to listen to Him. It is only when the power is grounded in love that power becomes liberating, becomes salvific. So power asks love to talk to the Lord, because it is love that opens the heart of the Lord. And it is people who love who will be able to understand the Lord. The church is powerful, and the world is full of powerful people. The government, business, we have full of powerful people, people in authority, people in high position. But if you want to talk to the Lord, you don't talk to the Lord as a CEO. You don't talk to the Lord as rector. You don't talk to the Lord as superior. You don't talk to the Lord as prior. You don't talk to the Lord as master. You talk to the Lord as a loved one, as a beloved, because it is only love that will be able to understand love. So preaching in the time of pandemic is not an excuse to be lacking in love. Yes, we need brilliance. Yes, we need intelligence. But most of all, we need love, because it is preaching that comes from love that is salvific, that is grace-filled, that touches and moves hearts. So, let us continue our meditation on this mystic of a disciple. On Easter Sunday, Peter and John rushed to the tomb because Mary Magdalene told them the Lord's body is not there. Being the younger one, Saint John the Beloved reaches the tomb first, but he stops and allows Peter to enter. What does it mean? Love outruns authority. Love reaches the tomb ahead of authority. It is not because of youth or because of age. It is simply that love outruns authority. But even if love outruns authority and love reaches the tomb first, what does love do? Love recognizes authority over him and then gives way to authority. In other words, love is obedient. Because love that is not obedient is false. It's fake. So, what does it mean for us as mystical preachers in the time of pandemic? That we are only echoes. We do not preach our opinion. We do not preach our personal likes and dislikes. We do not preach what the columnists say. We are only echoes. We are only echoes of the message of the gospel entrusted to the church. And our duty is to obey, to repeat what has been taught for the past 2,000 years. Love outruns authority. Love recognizes authority because love is always obedient. When we look into our hearts, preaching during this time of pandemic, it was the same before the pandemic came. We need mysticism in preaching. We need to recognize that the beating of the Lord's heart moves us to look at the door, to look outside. We must recognize that the way to the Lord's heart is not power or authority, it is still love. And while love outruns authority, love submits, because love is always obedient. So should our preaching be. It must always obey, because we are not the masters. We are only servants. We are only echoes of the gospel we have received. So, on the second part, I'd like to invite you to reflect on what has the pandemic taught us as preachers. The first word is sensitivity. Nowadays, when people say to us, sensitive ka naman, it does not sound very well. It does not land well. Kasi pag sinabing sensitive ka naman, ang ibig sabihin noon, matampuhin. Ang ibig sabihin noon, mapagtanim ng sama ng loob. But no, sensitivity is not about tampo. Sensitivity is about vulnerability. It is allowing the pain of my brothers and sisters to enter my heart, to enter my soul, so that their pains become my pains. The world is suffering with hopelessness, with depression, with confusion, with hunger, with joblessness, with insecurity, with sorrow, with grief, with uncertainty, and of course, the reality of death. The world is suffering, and we cannot be foreign to the sufferings of the world. That is the difference between Socrates and the Lord Jesus. Socrates drank hemlock with such dignity, without any element of fear, but with nobility, with such dignity, with such courage. But the Lord saved us. Socrates was not able to save us from sin. The Lord saved us. And how did the Lord save us? By accepting the vulnerability of our human condition. By being afraid as we are afraid. By being anxious as we are anxious. By crying as we cry. By being insecure as we are insecure. By feeling abandoned as we have been abandoned. By feeling lonely as we are lonely. By sweating tears. By sweating blood and tears. Out of love. Out of love for us. So my dear brothers and sisters, in this time of pandemic, let us be sensitive. It is not true that we cannot preach to empty stomachs. We can preach to empty stomachs if the stomach of the preacher is as empty as his parishioners. The problem is, our stomachs are so full and our lives are so convenient. That is why we do not have the credibility to preach to those who are suffering, to preach to those who are hungry, because they know that we are alien to their sufferings, to their hunger, to their fears, to their grief. We can preach to empty stomachs if the stomach of the preacher is as empty as his parishioners. The second lesson that the pandemic has taught us after sensitivity is serendipity. Serendipity is the development of events that lead to a surprise invention or surprise lesson or surprise gift that is purely unexpected. It is an invention that was not intended. Serendipity. Years ago, we were taught that in order to preach, you must have a high IQ. You must be intelligent. And then after a few more years, we started to see the intelligent ones were a pain in the ass, or a pain in the neck, or a pain somewhere else. So we started to talk about EQ, which is emotional quotient. The capacity not just to understand, the capacity not just to analyze, the capacity not just to reason out, but the capacity to reach out, to be a friend, to work as a team. That is emotional quotient. To recognize in your brother or sister, a brother or sister, not just a competitor. EQ. So we shake hands, we smile, we make friends, but there is still something lacking, because people with high IQ and people with high emotional quotient seem to lack something more. And the pandemic has taught us what is lacking. What is lacking? The WQ. And WQ is the wonder quotient. The capacity to be awed. The capacity to be able to say, wow. The capacity to wonder. The capacity to let go of our control of events and allow events to unfold. And as the events unfold, we see that something new happens, that something unexpected is invented. That is serendipity. That is the wow quotient. That is the wonder quotient. Preaching in the time of pandemic invites us to open our eyes, because it is not only the books that teach us, it is not only the community that teaches us. There is the wonder quotient. There is that sense of mystery. There is that sense of wonder. And we don't have to burst the wonder. We don't have to burst the miracle, the mystery. We have to just allow the mystery to fill us. Let us just enter into the mystery and allow the mystery to envelope us. Because when that sense of mystery is lost, our preaching would only be a speech. When the sense of the mystery of God is lost, our preaching would only be a lecture. Very inspiring, very enlightening, but not touching hearts, because the mystery of God, the mystery of grace, is lacking or absent. The pandemic has taught us serendipity. It has made us discover the value of media, of our various social media platforms, but even more, it has led us to discover that preaching is so important, that preaching is at the essence of the mission of the church, that if we would abandon this or take this for granted, we would be betraying the Lord. The last word is liminality. Liminality is being at the threshold. It is the already and the not yet. Liminality is recognizing yesterday is behind us, but we are not yet into the future. We are not yet there. We are in the process of getting there. We cannot return to the so-called old normal, but the new normal is not yet with us. The old normal, we cannot return to that anymore, but the new normal is not yet here. Liminality. It can breed uncertainty. It can, for the control freaks, they might say, we have lost control of the events in the world, because at the core of it, we want to plan. We want to be in control of what happens. But liminality teaches us that we cannot be in control. That there is something more important than control. And what is it? Faith in the Lord, hope in the Lord. There are things we cannot control. There are things we cannot handle. There are things beyond strategic planning. But higher than strategic planning is the capacity to hope in the Lord, to believe that the world is running and the hand of the Lord is guiding us. liminality teaches us preachers to be bringers of hope, to be reinforcers of faith among our people. We are not yet there, but the past is already behind us. And if we are uncertain about the future, let us just say, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. My dear brothers and sisters, this pandemic has taught us three important words about preaching. Sensitivity, which is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Liminality, which is allowing ourselves to lose control and live by hope and live by faith. Serendipity, which is gaining and regaining that sense of mystery, that wonder quotient, that intelligence is not enough, that community life and EQ is not enough. We need that sense of mystery, that sense of wonder, because at the end of the day, we are stewards of the mysteries of God. This pandemic will pass, and another chapter will open. But as history unfolds, and as the plan of God continues to unfold, we preachers should just make an act of faith and say, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Heal our world, heal my heart. Let me feel the beating, the pulsing, the pulsating of your heart, and I move forward in mission. Let my feet be beautiful. Let my tongue be beautiful, not because of me, but because of you, walking in my life, speaking through my lips, and working in my hands. Thank you, Lord, for entrusting to us this ministry of preaching. God bless you all.